Oikos is the primary reason why 95% of Christians who are in the body of Christ are in the body of Christ. In his book Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell describes an outlier as a value that lies outside, that is, it's much smaller or larger than, most of the other values in a set of data. 95 out of 100 is a statistical anomaly in most any conversation. Therefore, by definition, oikos is an outlier. For example, what do you think would happen if the scientific community discovered that of all the people who've been healed from cancer, 95% had received the same treatment? You better believe that's all the oncology world would want to talk about. And the only places you'd want to be treated would be where they use that particular regimen. Or what would happen if a Hollywood reporter discovered that of all the actors who had won an Oscar over the last 20 years, 95% of them had been trained at the same theatrical school? There'd be a waiting list a mile long to get into that school. Or what would happen if someone discovered that 95% of the most valuable players in all professional sports over the past 20 years had grown up in your hometown? Wouldn't ESPN have already made plans to move their international headquarters there? Or what if 95% of all believers came to Christ through the same ministry model? Do you not think that every Christian seminary, publication, local church would elevate that model above everything else? Well, if you thought that way, you might want to think again. And that's what's so strange to me. Of all believers, from every generation, every culture, every denomination for the past 2,000 years of church history, dating all the way back to the founder himself, Jesus, 95% came to faith primarily through the influence of someone or a group of someones whom they already knew pretty well. And yet most pastors seem to shrug their shoulders and want to get on to the next scheduled emphasis or program du jour. You don't have to take my word for it. Ask your church family this weekend. Ask for a show of hands from all of the people who know Jesus primarily because of the influence of someone they already knew, someone in their oikos. Raise your hand if a parent or a sibling, a work associate or a classmate, a neighbor or a friend were the primary reason or reasons you gave your heart to Christ. Watch as virtually the entire room will raise their hands. If you're me, that response will interest you enough to go to the church down the street and ask the same question. In fact, it might even interest you enough to go to every church in your community and ask it again. Or to go into hundreds of other churches around the world and say it again and again and again. I've personally presented that question to hundreds of audiences and tens of thousands of people. Different denominations, different countries, different cultures, different ages, different worship styles, different everything. And yet I always get the same response to that question. No audience has been an exception. In conversations after those events, I've also discovered that when somebody didn't raise their hand, they usually didn't understand the question. Now, I've never claimed to be the sharpest tack on the board, but even I understand that a reality like that has got to change the focus of my life, the focus of my schedule, even my ministry, if I want to reach more people. My goal is to help you to laser in on that reality as well. The word laser is an acronym for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. Most of us already know that a laser is a device that creates and amplifies a very narrow, intense beam of light. But if you dig a little deeper, you'll discover that physicists call that beam of light coherent light. Normally, as atoms emit radiation, they radiate light in random directions at random times, and the result is what physicists call incoherent light, a technical term for what you would consider a jumble of photons going in all directions. The trick in generating coherent light of a single or just a few frequencies going in one precise direction is to find the right atoms with the right internal storage mechanisms and create an environment in which they can all cooperate to give up their light at precisely the same time and all in the same direction. And if you can figure out how to do that, well, the result is pretty powerful. The power of focused light is seemingly endless in virtually every element of our lives. In medicine, in weaponry, in entertainment systems, the construction industry, you name it. And the church is no different. The difference between Christians who are coherent and Christians who are incoherent is this element of laser-sharp focus. See, everything and everyone simply cannot be important to you, or nothing and no one will be. I once read about a guy who went to a church leadership conference and claimed to have repeatedly heard this line: "The most important thing you can do for your church is," with each speaker or seminar leader then adding their most important thing. Well, after hearing 20-some completely different yet still the most important things described over the course of a 3-day conference, he didn't know which one he should try first. Is it even possible to have more than one most important anythings? By definition, you can't even have two most important of anything. There's only one most important thing in anyone's life or in anyone's ministry. Other things may still be important, but they're always less important at best. I think we try to do too many things in our churches, frankly. Our people are so consumed with all the projects and programs and campaigns and other ministry options we provide that they end up actually not being passionate about any of them. We preach about how they shouldn't be overworked, and then we overwork them. We counsel them about not being overcommitted to too many things, and then we overcommit them to our things. The constant challenge to always do more and more actually causes them to do nothing. You see, our call to commitment has always been framed as all or nothing. And since they can't do the all, they take the only other option we gave them: nothing. And by the way, this is not about how much people are committed to Jesus. It's recognizing that they can be completely committed to Jesus and still not want to participate in our new church initiative of the week. Because of the high value of simplicity and the deep desire for maximum impact, this has become the focus of my challenge to pastors. But don't let that word simple give you the wrong impression, because none of this is easy. It's just simple. It's simple enough for me and 12,000 people who are tucked away here in a remote part of Southern California. It's simple enough for hundreds of other churches around the world that are sharpening their own focus on the Great Commission. And it's simple enough for you, I promise. This is not about what you should do next. It's about what you should do, period. 6 months from now, you'll probably have already had people ask you, well, what's next? What's after the Oikos campaign? It wasn't until HDC finally realized that there was no next that we started having an impact on the world around us.